Yes, it's John G. Sutton, Tales from the Jails. Today I want to talk a little bit about racism uh, as reflected in the prisons. And let me start with Wormwood Scrubs in 1975. When I worked at Wormwood Scrubs, there was racism, and I found that it was a lot of it was not so much the staff, as the staff were a fairly eclectic bunch of officers from all around the United Kingdom. There were a lot of Scotch officers, quite a number of Welsh officers, and of course from the middle of England and the north of England, which is where I was from, having been posted to the Scrubs from my initial roots in the Greater Manchester, Lancashire area. So there were a number of staff, but there was only one that I knew of in the entire prison at Wormwood Scrubs, which had a staff of about 300. There was only one officer who was not a white Caucasian male. There were no female officers at all, not one. But there was one black officer who was a great big, I think he was a West Indian, he was from Jamaica, I believe, but he was a great big fella, and he had enormous arms, and he'd been involved in the Mr. Universe contests. Whether he'd won Mr. Universe or not, I don't know. There was people who said that he had won. Well, I know that he was certainly big enough to win, because he had great big muscular arms and big hands. He was a great big hefty fella. Worked on the Borstal Allocation Centre, which was B Wing, and he lived on the same corridor as me, on the same my flat, my maisonette. Yes, it was 2 floors, but it was essentially a flat. Yeah, was on the same corridor as him, and he listen. It's an absolute disgrace what happened to this man. I was perfectly friendly with him. We talked. We used to walk to work together. Very often walk back at night, because it wasn't practical to take a vehicle from where we lived on Bromyard Avenue. Look it up. Bromyard Avenue. Mm-hmm. It's all the flats have been knocked down and replaced with luxury places now. So where we lived is not there now. Mm-hmm. But he lived on the same corridor as me, and believe this or not, some despicable people or person started to shove human excrement through this officer's door. Now, what kind of a pig would do that? He was deeply upset by this. I mean, he had a wife and child. I spoke to him. I said, "Listen, we'll help. We'll set up a watch. This is before the days of CCTV cameras. Seriously, there were nothing like that." I said, "We'll set up a watch. We'll take turns in hiding out in the corridor to watch for who comes and does this, because it happened about 4 or 5 times. It was despicable. The poor man, and all he was doing, like myself and the rest, the majority of the staff, was earning a living for his wife, and they did that to him, the poor guy." I found that the racism in the Scrubs was the other way around. It was the West Indians who used to call us strange names. I'm still not sure what it means, but it wasn't until I got to Wormwood Scrubs that I realised I was really something they called a rasclad, whatever that is. A bamberclad. I think that's what they said. Bamberclad. Oh, you tell me what it means. I don't know. Rasclad, bamberclad. They call me these names to my face. I said, "I'm sorry. You can't offend me because I don't know what it means. Piss off. Leave me alone." Anyway, that was Wormwood Scrubs, and really the staff were not overtly racist. There were a number of ethnic minority groups that had to represent their faith, their Islamic faith, through Ramadan and such, and it was facilitated, seriously. And some of the food they got for Ramadan, I mean, it was the other inmates were really jealous about this because it was brilliant stuff, you know, when they have Eid and all that. Anyway, that's Wormwood Scrubs. Say that wasn't particularly racist. Strangeways, on the other hand, was extremely racist. They had the head of the Northwest National Front, who I've previously told you, whose name was Brian Baldwin. Do look him up. Somebody sent me a message saying that they'd looked Brian Baldwin up and that he died, I think it was in 2018. He previously lived in Wales, and he'd passed on, and it listed him as being a former director of some company associated with the Freemasons, and that he'd been a previous prison governor, which he had, because despite the fact that he was the Northwest head of the National Front, the government appointed him as the head of race relations for the north of England for all prison office establishments. Seriously, you can imagine that. Now, at Strangeways, there was one, just one at the time. This is about 1978, 79, 78, 79, 80. One Asian officer, and he was a nice chap. He used to bring me recipes in, because my wife was trying to cook, you know, the meals like the Indian meals. I liked Indian takeaway meals and stuff like that. So he used to bring the recipes in, and I quite liked the guy. And he was perfectly friendly, and I didn't have any problems at all. In fact, he was studying as well. You know, he was really trying to better himself. And we heard through the system that what was happening was he was on the fast track. They were going to fast track him for promotion. It would look good, you see, for the establishment, which was blatantly racist. You know, people walking around with the National Front little badges, the enamel badges, a furled Union Jack flag. You know, it would look good for the establishment to have an Asian officer promoted. But this is the God's honest truth. Now, it shocked me when I found out. What happened was, I mean, the staff were greedy for overtime, yeah? The staff wanted more overtime. Give me more overtime. I'm trying to get rid of my overtime, yeah? So what happened was, this particular officer, whose name I shall not give you, but he was an Asian, and he went round the staff saying, listen, if you want to get rid of your evening shift or your weekend call in, I'll do it. And what he did was, he would book himself in to do, say, 3 or 4 Saturday call-ins. And then, because there was no other staff needed, he'd go round to the staff that he knew, we call them overtime bandits, and he'd sell them a shift, an extra shift on the Saturday. You know, I can get you a Saturday call-in, you know, if you want. I know there's none left, but I can get you a Saturday call-in if you want. You give me a £5, yeah? So something like that, yeah? So he'd booked himself for 4 Saturday shifts with people who had been called in on extra duties, yeah? And then he sold the extra duties on to the overtime bandits. And eventually, it didn't take very long actually, for this to come out, and he was called in and disciplined, and that was his chances of actually going up the ladder, you know, being promoted, went out the window. If only he just followed normal routes, but he was, and he was a decent guy, I thought, but obviously a bit greedy there, you know, kind of tricky-dicky, selling that kind of thing, you know, extra shift at night or whatever. Hey, just give us a couple of quid, you know, I'll get you one. Setting himself up as a broker for overtime. Seriously. Anyway, I'm going to, you know, some of you have actually been complaining. People have been complaining about my singing. Give me a break. You know, you deserve it. You lucky people. Here we go. I'm going to do you another Irish song now. This is by a man called Thomas Davis, yeah, who was born in 1814 in the city of Cork in Southern Ireland. And he was an Irishman, but his father was Welsh, hence his name was Davis. His mother was Irish, yeah. And once his father died, they moved to Dublin, where he was educated at Trinity College. He had a classical education, hence there are lines in this song that allude to certain classical Greek incidents. The Battle of Thermopylae, in which the Spartans fought against the Iranian forces, the Persian forces. Iran wasn't called Iran, it was called Persia, yeah. And 300 Spartans fought the entire Persian army, thousands of them. They were virtually all slaughtered, but he used this classical text of history, you know, to exemplify the bravery of the Irish freedom fighters who were up against the black and tans that were the British army. And he wanted to see Ireland free, and so the song that he wrote is called A Nation Once Again. When boyhood's fire was in my blood, I read of ancient free men for Greece and Rome who bravely stood, 300 men and 3 men. And then I prayed I yet might see our fetters rent in twain, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again, a nation once again, a nation once again, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again. So as I grew from boy to man, and bent me to that bidding, my spirit of each selfish plan and cruel passion ridding, for thus I hope some day to aid. Oh, can such hope be vain, when my dear country shall be made a nation once again, a nation once again, a nation once again, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again. That's recorded by a group called the Wolf Tones. Yeah, you can look that up on YouTube, and I sincerely hope that you enjoyed that. No doubt about it, you did. So you can send me in all your comments, and please subscribe. It's John G. Sutton, Tales from the Jails.